Good evening, everyone. It is a weekday. I'm Duane Whitmer, so it's time for another weekly Whitmer Wisdom Day. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's time for it. This week we're going to talk about something I've actually talked about before, and I will continue to talk about every time it happens, and that is another debacle of government here in Western New York. This one's not as funny because there might have been some pretty bad repercussions that came out of it, but we're going to talk about another snowstorm in Western New York. Shocking to hear it. It's shocking that we get snow in December in Western New York. It seems like for like the fifth year in a row, Western New York governments don't realize that it snows in December in Western New York, and they have been kind of caught once again with their pants down. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how it affected me here in Hamburg, and then we're going to talk about something I did that actually kind of lit a fire under some asses. And I'm kind of impressed to see it. So we'll get into it. So those of you that know, about a week ago, there was a storm in Western New York, if you live in Western New York. And I actually was in the storm. And to be honest, it really sucked because it started coming down at like 2, 3 o'clock. And it came down real quick and real heavy between 3 and 5, which is rush hour. And yeah, it sucked to drive in. It took me like 45 minutes to get a couple miles up the road to my house. Traffic was very slow, very limited. Route 5, which is a road I drive on, was down to 2 lanes, like 1.5 lanes. It's usually a 4-lane road, 2 lanes each way. It was like a 1 lane each way, and the middle lane was a free for all. So not a lot of cars could pass each other, and that kind of slowed down traffic, which slowed down snow removal, which slowed down the plows, which slowed down traffic more. So it kind of turned into like this domino effect of cars on the road trying to get home, can't get home quickly. Plows can't clear the roads. Cars are getting stuck. Plows are getting stuck in traffic. So I get the genesis of why there was an issue. But I live in Hamburg, and it got worse because the snow happened on Tuesday, I believe, or Monday, Tuesday, whatever the day the snow happened. And here in Hamburg, there was a lot of complaints about, where's the plows? What's going on? Where are the plows? Why isn't my road plowed? What's going on? And really, what it comes down to was lack of planning, just lack of give a shit, and quite frankly, it's all a move for money. And then we can talk about that. But so that's what happened. A lot of people in Western New York had a really rough time getting home, and there was a mass frustration. And my favorite thing to see in all this is, it's like I said, 3 things. Number one, people are pissed at what they paid for. They're paying taxes. They feel that their services are not being properly, they're not getting what they paid for, which rightfully so. Usually with most government services, you are not getting what you paid for because all you're doing is supporting a jobs program. More on that later. But yeah, you're not getting what you paid for. We get that. So you had that issue, and then you have the people that come out and say, they defend the government. They're doing their best. And look, I'll actually say I do believe the government is doing its best in a crisis. The problem that you have is that usually if you work for the government, your best and your ceiling and your floor are like you're not in a big cavernous, old school house where there's like vaulted ceilings. You're in a crawl space. So your ceiling and your floor for the government are like, their best is like kind of like bare minimum for someone else, because there is no recourse if they fail. I mean, what happens if the town of Hamburg says, we don't give a shit, we're going to plow when we want, because we want, or we're not even going to plow? What are you going to do? You're not going to pay your taxes. They're going to take your house. They're going to sell your house at a tax auction. And then the next fool that lives there is going to be forced to pay the same scenario. There's no recourse. There's no free market solution if they fail. Now, if my plow driver doesn't come plow my driveway, I don't pay him and I hire a new company. I can't do that with the town of Hamburg. They know it. They don't give a shit. So you're stuck. So Tuesday was a nightmare. It was a mess, and even to the next day, it was a mess because we didn't see a plow until like the next day in the morning, which was kind of unimpressive. But it is right. So you see the people complaining, which is freedom to redress in the First Amendment. You're allowed to redress your grievances to government, and then you have the people that defend at all costs. They do not care. These people are doing their best. They're trying their hardest. Leave them alone. Okay. And then my favorite is the government employees of Hamburg come out to defend their port service. And I always love that, because my favorite thing to do is look at their name, find them on See Through New York, and post their salary. And more on that later. but it turns into usually a cluster because, people are like, wait a minute, you're making 110 grand a year to work for the town of Hamburg. What the hell are you doing, So we have this perfect storm. And so what I did was I was like, how can I show to people that the problem is bigger than government sucking, or the problem is, what's the real problem? The real problem, quite frankly, is the government Ponzi scheme jobs program that I like to talk about so much. I'll give you an example. In the town of Hamburg, I actually have their town budget right here. I'm gonna post it in here, and I'll post it, and then I'll share it. Town of Hamburg put their budget out, and I recommend, if you're mad about something the government does, stop just bitching and start using basic Google and internet functions to really hammer them. So for Hamburg, New York, for example, their highway department gets about $6.5 million in tax dollars. Actually, closer to $6 million in tax revenue for the Hamburg Highway Department. If you look at this budget, not as soon as, but they get $6 million allocated to their program. 4.2 goes to salaries, benefits, and just salaries. I didn't include like the negotiation, the seminars, the training. Even though that's technically a benefit, I kept that out. So that's about 70%. So for every dollar that the allocated town of Hamburg Highway Department gets, 70 cents of that goes into someone's pocket through salaries and benefits. To take it a step further, if you look at the town of Hamburg budget, they spend $265,000 on salt, chemicals, $9,600 on rental locations, $2,000 on contracted services, $15,000 on replies and maintenance. So 15 grand on maintenance supplies. Meanwhile, workers' compensation insurance consultant is $5,300. Retirees health insurance, it actually went down this year, which is nice to see, but it's still pretty high. They spent about $200,000 on oh, that's why they just moved it. So they moved it. They pay 175 grand on workers' comp, and then they moved it around. Not a big deal, but essentially, that's good. So they spend about no, it's more than that. Give me a second. It's 2 lines. The proposed budget didn't have it in 2 lines. This one does. So $340,000 in retiree health insurance. So for someone that doesn't work there, you're paying at least $300,000 to $400,000 on the books to support them, and that's a lot, especially when it came out during the snowstorm that the town came out and said that 3 of their 12 plows were down at this time, which they're always down. So what I did was, I could go on Facebook and complain, I could bitch, or what I could do is I started an investigation. I started an investigation of the town of Hamburg Highway Department, and I'm doing an audit in a couple different ways. I'm doing a First Amendment audit, but I'm also doing a financial audit where I foiled. Look, and I said that I'm doing an investigation of the Hamburg Highway Department and its efficiency, its accountability, its transparency, its communication to the taxpayers, and quite frankly, its viability as an organization. I mean, you're getting $7 million and you can't handle plowing. I start to question, I'm starting to question, the efficiency and viability of this organization as a whole. So I foiled things in the town of Hamburg. That night, I went to the foil at Hamburg, and I recommend everyone does this. And so I asked for a couple things. I asked for the plowing routes, their timesheets of the staff that worked there from October 1st until present. I asked for timesheets of their maintenance team from October 1st to present, because I want to see if they're prepping for winter. I want to see if they're spending time checking the equipment, working on the equipment, preparing the equipment, or are they sitting there with their thumb in their ass, high-fiving each other and collecting a $100,000 year paycheck. I asked for plowing routes. I asked for how they handle calling people in for snow removal if it's after 5 o'clock, what their procedure is for snow removal, what their MOP or their SOP is, their standard of procedure or method of operation, whatever they call it. I said, How do you guys handle a snowstorm or a snow event or a generic snowfall? What are your procedures? What do you have in place? Kind of what are your guidelines? Like if you work in the real world and you work in retail, you work at McDonald's. Let's do this. You work at McDonald's. You get an order, you punch it into the machine, it goes to the computer in the back, and you put bread, meat, pickles, lettuce, ketchup, mustard, bun, wrap, go. There's a procedure for almost everything. So what is Hamburg's procedure? What is their, and I said, I want to view it in-house. I want to be there. I want to view these records in-house. They responded to my acknowledge saying that we got your request, but we need more than the 5 days. We need till January 1st, 2024. And I said, okay, that's great. Well, here's where the wind comes in and how you light a fire under people's asses. And this is where direct action, freedom of information, this is where all this, the direct action, the foiling comes together to really cause concerns for the political class. They told me it's going to take them 5, 6, 7 weeks to respond. Next day, I'm on Facebook, and Hamburg's town supervisor, Ed Hughes, is putting out there the plow routes, how it works, the jurisdictions. He's literally responding to my FOIL in order on his page. So I'm interested to see what Hamburg does about this FOIL request. If they deny it, I'm going to sue them because clearly they have the information because Ed Hughes put it out 24 hours later. They tell me they need 6 weeks to find it. Well, Ed Hughes found it 12 hours later. So it turns into a issue for them. So I'm interested in finding out what's going on there. And this is kind of the gift that keeps giving because it's only December 7th here in Western New York. They're predicted to have a warmer winter, which means the lake isn't going to freeze. The lake not freezing means more lake effect, which means there's going to be more big snowfalls. So if the lake doesn't freeze, I don't really get how it works, to be honest with you. I'm not a geologist or a meteorologist, but essentially from what I understand, lake doesn't freeze, clouds scoop up water, come over shore, dump water as snow. We're going to have more snow events. We're going to have more snowstorms. We're going to have more issues like this. And every time this happens, this allows me to keep hammering that, I've been asking for this. I've been trying to help. I've been trying to figure it out. And so this kind of shows where you can expand just from just complaining or yelling about what's going on into actual accomplishments by hammering your government and showing them that you're willing to do the research. I plan on going to the board meeting on the 11th and following up on this and telling them that I'm very frustrated with their lack of response. And I'm going to call them out. I'm going to record it. It'll be on Act Now Media, which is a new company I started to do first now. I'll do a video on Act Now probably next week, but it's going to be more First Amendment auditing, more transparency, more investigative research into government and kind of their efficiency and their viability. And one of the suggestions I'm going to make is they should consider, Hamburg set the precedent for this just this year. They actually eliminated their cleaning department. They had like a cleaning staff of a handful of people that cleaned all the buildings. They eliminated the cleaning department, outsourced it. And I'm going to consider, they should consider outsourcing this because, if you're allocating $7 million to the highway department, they don't really got to do much. Patch the roads, fix the roads, clean the roads, plow the roads. My statists love the roads. If they can't do that, then it's time to consider maybe trying something different. So I'm going to suggest that and see how that goes. I'm going to get laughed at. They're going to call me an asshole. I understand. But lastly, this kind of this differentiates the direct action people versus the progressives and the reformers. A lot of people's response is we just got to hire more people. But this is the conservative Schrodinger's government. Better services, more employees, yet less taxes. You're never going to get that. You're never going to be able to hire more people and get better service with cutting taxes because it's a tax consumer. This is where, privatization and outsourcing goes a long way. I mean, you can cut millions of dollars in benefits, health insurance, retirement, by outsourcing this. If they're not in a government paycheck, they're not getting government benefits. They can start their own company and have their own benefits. Problem solved. I mean, it's not hard to think about. You just have to be willing to do something different. And I'll end on this. This is a good litmus test to see if people are on the side or not is, what their response to this is. If they're mad about it, but they're just going to vote different, you don't really get the problem. The problem we have is that, this is controlled by the jobs program and you've got to kind of combat the jobs program. So anyone that gets elected is not going to combat the jobs program because they're not going to win re-election. So my solution is to hammer them. Point out to the people why it's a absolute failure, why the government is a Ponzi scheme jobs program, hell bent on taking your tax dollars to fund the political class and the jobs program, while not providing a service. I'll end on this. I don't believe government should be run like a business. I think the phrase government should be run like a business is a terrible scenario. I think generally accepting government should be run like a not-for-profit or a community organization is more like it. But would you donate to an organization that was in the business of something? Hey, we're in the business of providing a service to the consumer. We're a not-for-profit that does road maintenance and road plowing. 70% of your donation goes to someone's pocket. That not-for-profit should not get your money. That charity should not get your money. That foundation shouldn't get your money. That's a Ponzi scheme. And that's kind of what you have going on here in Hamburg with their highway department. So, look, a lot of people are going to get mad that I said this. I've already gotten a couple pretty mean messages from people that work for the town of Hamburg. One thing to say, if you're going to send me a death threat, make sure you don't work for the town of Hamburg where I can't just look up your name on See-Through New York. That really doesn't go very well. But it is what it is. More on this later. Like I said, the Hamburg town meeting is next week. I plan on going and suggesting that they, consider outsourcing this or privatizing this in some form, or consider retaining an outside company to help stick up when things go south. Because look, Hamburg had a snow problem last week, and the response was 3 of their 12 plows were down. Hey, if I own a company and 25% of my company goes down when I need it the most, I'm firing people. I do own a company. I own a company. And in my business, if 25% of my company went down, my infrastructure went down, I'm firing somebody. Yet no one's going to lose their job, and no one's going to learn anything. Nothing's going to change. Is this the new normal for Hamburg? We get snow, everyone gets stuck in bitches. I don't know. We're going to find out. But once again, we have an example of government not being able to do the basic task, what it's designed to do up on $7 million budget. Imagine putting this government in charge of more things. I don't know how you can watch the government and function and think it should be more in charge of anything. This government couldn't organize a Dairy Queen in hell. I mean, this is just, it's embarrassing. But hey, that's why I'm here to let you know what's going on. Stay tuned for next week. I think I'm going to talk about Act Now Media, what it is, what I do, and how that's going. And we'll see you guys later. Have a good week, guys. Take care. Have a good one.